A sick millionaire asked a nurse to pretend to be his daughter for one day. The silence in Suite 701 of the prestigious Mount Cedar Private Hospital wasn't the peaceful kind. It was a heavy, sterile silence, punctuated only by the rhythmic sigh of a ventilator and a quiet hum of medical monitors. Outside the panoramic window, Los Angeles sprawled under a perpetually hazy sun, a city teeming with life and ambition, but none of its vibrant energy penetrated these walls. Here, life was measured in beeps and drips, in the rise and fall of a fragile chest beneath crisp white sheets. In the center of the spacious, Eames chair-furnished room lay Nathan Brooks. Even amidst the clinical paraphernalia, vestiges of his former power remained. The sharp line of his jaw, now softened by illness, the intense blue eyes, now clouded with pain and weariness, peering out from a face ravaged by advanced pancreatic cancer. At 62, he should have been enjoying the fruits of his tech empire, Brooks Innovations, a company he'd built from a garage startup into a global behemoth. He had amassed a fortune that could reshape skylines, fund revolutions, or eradicate diseases. Instead, he was trapped in a failing body, his billions as useless as dust against the relentless march of his own mortality. Wealth had bought him this private suite, the best doctors, round-the-clock nursing, but it couldn't buy him time, nor could it fill the cavernous emptiness that had hollowed him out long before the cancer took hold. Nathan Brooks was utterly alone. His wife, Clara, had succumbed to a swift illness years ago. Friends were mostly business associates, orbiting his wealth rather than his person. And Emily, his daughter, his bright, rebellious, beautiful Emily, had been gone for 25 years. Lost in a senseless car accident at the age of 20, leaving a wound in Nathan's soul that had never healed. He had poured all his energy into his work after her death, building his empire brick by digital brick, perhaps hoping the sheer scale of his success could somehow counterbalance the magnitude of his loss. It hadn't. The door opened softly, and a young woman in pale blue scrubs entered, pushing a small medical cart. This was Lily Carter, one of the rotating team of nurses assigned to Mr. Brooks. She was 25, with warm, kind brown eyes that seemed unusually perceptive and a gentle efficiency in her movements. She offered Nathan a small, professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She knew better than to offer false cheer to a man clearly grappling with his final days. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks," she said softly, checking the Ford drip. "Time to check your vitals and change the dressing on your port site." Nathan merely grunted, his gaze fixed on the window. He rarely spoke, interacting with the staff only when necessary. He was known on the floor as difficult, demanding in his silence, rejecting pleasantries and attempts at conversation with a dismissive wave or a pointed look away. Many nurses found him intimidating, cold. Lily, however, possessed a quiet patience that seemed unflappable. Perhaps it stemmed from her own past. She had grown up in the foster care system, moving between homes until she aged out 18. She'd never known her parents, her history a blank slate filled only with case files and the kindness of strangers, and sometimes the lack thereof. That experience had forged in her a deep well of empathy, a keen sensitivity to unspoken pain, and a fierce determination to provide the care and stability she herself had often lacked. She'd worked tirelessly, putting herself through nursing school, driven by a genuine desire to alleviate suffering. She went about her tasks methodically, her touch light but sure as she checked his blood pressure, listened to his shallow breathing, and carefully cleaned and redressed the central line port in his chest. She spoke quietly, explaining each step, not expecting a response, but offering the information as a measure of respect. "Everything looks stable, Mr. Brooks. Blood pressure is holding steady, she reported, making notes on his chart. Are you feeling any more discomfort this morning? We can adjust your pain medication if needed. He gave a slight shake of his head, his eyes still averted. Lily sighed inwardly. She'd seen this kind of withdrawal before, the profound loneliness that even the best medical care couldn't touch. She wished she could offer something more, some human connection, but she respected his boundaries. As she finished tidying up, gathering used supplies, her gaze fell on a framed photograph on the bedside table, partially obscured by a water pitcher. It showed a much younger Nathan, smiling, his arm around a vibrant young woman with flyaway dark hair and eyes that laughed with mischief. Emily. Lily had heard whispers from longer-serving staff about the tragedy of the millionaire's lost daughter. Looking at the photo, she felt a pang of sympathy for the withdrawn man in the bed. To build so much, yet lose what mattered most. She was beautiful, Lily said softly, unable to help herself, nodding towards the photo. Nathan's head turned sharply, his clouded eyes focusing on Lily for the first time with something other than vacant dismissal. He stared at her, his gaze intense, searching. Lily felt a prickle of unease under the scrutiny. Had she overstepped? Yes, Nathan finally rasped, his voice rough from disuse. She was everything. He continued to look at Lily, a strange, unreadable expression flickering in his eyes. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the light faded, and he turned back towards the window, the heavy curtain of silence falling once more. Lily finished her rounds, collected her card, and left the room, but Nathan Brooks's intense gaze lingered in her mind. There was a depth of sorrow there that resonated with her own unnamed sense of loss, the perpetual question mark of her origins. Over the next few days, Lily was assigned to Mr. Brooks's care several times. The dynamic remained largely unchanged, her quiet professionalism, his taciturn silence. Yet, she noticed small things. He seemed less quick to turn away when she spoke. Occasionally, his eyes would follow her as she moved around the room. Once, when she was adjusting his pillows, her hand brushed his, and instead of pulling away immediately, he hesitated for a fraction of a second, his gaze locking onto hers with that same searching intensity she'd seen before. One afternoon, while Lily was replacing his bag, Nathan spoke, his voice thin but clear. "What's your name again?" "Lily Carter, Mr. Brooks," she replied, surprised. "Lily," he repeated, testing the sound. He looked at her thoughtfully. You're very kind. Gentle. I try to be, sir," Lily said simply. "It's my job." "No," Nathan insisted, a faint frown creasing his brow. "It's more than that. It's in your eyes." He fell silent again, but this time it felt less like dismissal and more like contemplation. Lily found herself thinking about him more often, wondering about the man beneath the layers of wealth and grief. She started bringing him an extra newspaper in the morning, remembering he occasionally glanced at the business section. She made sure the water pitcher near Emily's photo was always full and the glass clean. Small gestures, offered without expectation. She didn't know it yet, but these small acts of kindness, coupled with something intangible in her presence, a fleeting resemblance, perhaps, or simply the warmth she exuded, were slowly chipping away at the fortress Nathan Brooks had built around his heart decades ago. A fragile, improbable seed of an idea was beginning to take root in the lonely millionaire's mind, nourished by desperation and the flickering hope of connection in his final days. The stage was being set, unknowingly, for a request that would change Lily Carter's life forever. The sterile routine of Suite 701 continued, but a subtle shift had occurred in the atmosphere. Nathan Brooks, while still gravely ill and often withdrawn, began to engage more with Lily during her shifts. It started small. A question about the weather. A comment on a news headline. Then, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, as Lily was meticulously organizing the medications on his bedside table, he spoke her name. "Lily." "Yes, Mr. Brooks," she answered, turning towards him. He gestured weakly towards the photograph of Emily. Could you bring that closer?" Lily carefully picked up the silver frame and handed it to him. Nathan's trembling fingers traced the outline of his daughter's smiling face. His eyes, usually clouded, held a distant, melancholic clarity. "She loved rainy days," he murmured, more to himself than to Lily. "Said it made the world look clean. We had this old bookstore we go to, down on 3rd Street. Smelled like dust and paper and secrets. We'd spend hours there, hiding from the rain, getting lost in stories." He fell silent, lost in the memory. Lily waited patiently, giving him space. It was the most he'd shared about his daughter, about his life before the silence took over. "She had your eyes, you know," Nathan said suddenly, his gaze shifting from the photograph to Lily's face. "Not the color exactly. Emily's were green, but the shape. And the way you look at things. Directly. Honestly." Lily felt a blush creep up her neck. "Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Brooks." She wasn't sure how to respond. Was he just rambling, lost in grief? She was stubborn too, Nathan continued, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Headstrong. Argued with me constantly. Especially that last year." His smile faded, replaced by a familiar shadow of pain. She wanted to be her own person. I didn't understand. Pushed too hard." He seemed to drift again, his grip tightening slightly on the photo frame. Lily gently took it from his weakening grasp and placed it back on the table, making sure it was angled towards him. Over the following week, these moments became more frequent during Lily's shifts. Nathan would observe her, sometimes asking her simple questions about her day, her commute, what she liked to read. He seemed to be studying her, comparing her, perhaps, to the ghost of his daughter. Lily found it unsettling, but also deeply poignant. She recognized the desperate need for connection beneath his guarded exterior. One evening, as Lily was preparing him for sleep, dimming the lights and ensuring his monitors were secure, Nathan reached out and grasped her forearm weakly. His touch was cool, papery thin, but his grip held surprising strength. "Lily," he began, his voice raspy, hesitant. "I know this is unorthodox, highly irregular, probably against every rule in this hospital." Lily waited, her heart rate quickening slightly. "What is it, Mr. Brooks?" He took a shaky breath. "You remind me so much of her. Not just the eyes, your mannerisms. The way you tilt your head when you're listening. It's uncanny." He paused, searching her face. "My Emily, I miss her so terribly. Especially now." He swallowed hard, the effort visible. "I know it's a lot to ask. An impossible thing, really. But just for a little while, when you're here, could you perhaps let me pretend?" Lily frowned slightly, confused. "Pretend, Mr. Brooks?" "Pretend you're her," he whispered, his eyes pleading. "Just talk to me. Tell me about your day, but as if you were her. Tell me you went for a walk in the park or argued with a professor or anything. Just let me hear her voice again in a way, just for a little while." Before, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Lily felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Her nursing ethics screamed against blurring professional boundaries. Role-playing with a patient? It felt wrong, potentially exploitative, even if he was the one asking. But looking into Nathan Brooks's desperate, grief-stricken eyes, seeing the raw pain of a father yearning for one last connection with his lost child, her compassion warred with her training. She, who had always longed for a family connection, understood the depth of his ache, even if the circumstances were vastly different. "Mr. Brooks," she began, trying to formulate a gentle refusal. "I wouldn't ask anyone else," he interrupted weakly. "There's just something—" "Please, Lily. I know it's strange. I wouldn't blame you for saying no, but it would mean the world to me." Lily looked at the frail man in the bed, his immense wealth irrelevant in the face of his profound human need. She thought of her own lonely childhood, the countless nights wondering who she looked like, whose voice echoed in her own. His request was bizarre, ethically dubious, but the sincerity in his plea, the sheer depth of his sorrow, touched a chord deep within her. She took a deep breath. "Okay, Mr. Brooks," she said softly, making a decision that felt both risky and right. I can sit with you for a bit longer after my shift ends sometimes. And I can listen. And maybe share some stories." She hesitated. "But I can't promise to be someone I'm not. I'm Lily." A flicker of disappointment crossed Nathan's face, but it was quickly replaced by weary gratitude. "Thank you, Lily," he rasped. Thank you. Even just having you here, talking, it helps." It wasn't the full charade he had perhaps envisioned. Not yet. But it was a start. A fragile bridge built across the chasm of his grief, facilitated by the unexpected kindness of a young nurse who saw beyond the millionaire to the heartbroken father beneath. Lily knew she was walking a fine line. She consulted briefly and vaguely with her supervising nurse, mentioning Mr. Brooks's loneliness and desire to reminisce about his daughter, framing her extra time spent listening as therapeutic presence. The supervisor, aware of Mr. Brooks's status and prognosis, cautiously approved, urging Lily to maintain clear boundaries. So, over the next few days, Lily began spending short periods with Nathan after her official duties were done. She'd pull up a chair, sometimes read from a book of poetry he seemed to like, sometimes just talk about innocuous things, the changing leaves outside, a funny interaction with another patient, a new recipe she tried. Nathan listened intently, occasionally interjecting with a memory of Emily sparked by something Lily said. Emily loved poetry, he murmured one afternoon after Lily finished reading a Robert Frost poem. She used to write her own. Terrible rhymes, mostly, he added with a faint smile, but full of feeling. Another time, when Lily mentioned enjoying a walk during her lunch break, Nathan's eyes lit up briefly. "We used to walk for hours. Griffith Park. She'd drag me up to the observatory, complaining the whole way, then stand there, breathless, looking at the city lights." Lily felt herself being drawn into his world, into the bittersweet tapestry of his memories. She was careful, always bringing the conversation back to the present, gently reminding him, "That sounds like a wonderful memory, Mr. Brooks." But she couldn't deny the connection forming between them. Fragile, unconventional, yet undeniably real. One evening, Nathan seemed particularly agitated. His breathing was shallower, his skin clammy. The doctor had warned that his time was likely growing shorter. Lily stayed late, holding his hand, wiping his brow with a cool cloth. In a moment of delirium, his eyes fluttered open, focusing on her with startling intensity. "Emily," he whispered, his voice thick. "You came back." Lily's heart constricted. "It's Lily, Mr. Brooks," she said gently but firmly. "I'm right here." He frowned, confused. "But the dress," he mumbled, gesturing vaguely towards his closet. "You were supposed to wear the white dress." Lily froze. The dress? Had he planned this all along? The request to pretend suddenly felt more calculated, more unsettling. Yet, looking at his clouded eyes, the vulnerability in his face, she couldn't find it in her heart to be angry. He was a dying man clinging to echoes. "There's no dress, Mr. Brooks," she said softly. "Just me. Lily." He seemed to accept this, his agitation slowly subsiding, but his words hung in the air, adding another layer of complexity to their strange relationship. The line between reality and Nathan's grief-fueled fantasy was blurring, and Lily felt herself being pulled deeper into the heart of his long-held sorrow. Nathan Brooks rallied slightly in the following days, a brief surge of energy often seen before the final decline. He was more lucid, though the frailty remained. His request regarding the white dress seemed forgotten, perhaps a product of the previous night's delirium. He continued to cherish the time Lily spent with him after her shifts, listening as she spoke, sometimes sharing memories, sometimes just sitting in companionable silence. Lily, for her part, maintained her gentle boundary. She was Lily, the nurse, offering comfort in conversation, not Emily, the ghost. Yet, she found herself choosing stories to share that she thought Emily might have enjoyed, tales of resilience from her foster care days framed with optimism, descriptions of everyday city life, dreams of travel she hoped to pursue someday. She spoke of the simple things, the taste of coffee from a favorite cafe, the sound of music in the park, the satisfaction of helping a difficult patient finally find relief. In a way, she was offering Nathan glimpses of a life his daughter never got to fully live, a life Lily herself was still building. One afternoon, Nathan seemed particularly pensive. He asked Lily to retrieve a small, locked wooden box from the bottom drawer of his bedside table. It was old, made of dark, polished cherry wood, inlaid with mother-of-pearl. He held it in his lap, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns. "This was Emily's," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "She kept her treasures in here. Letters, concert tickets, silly drawings, secrets." He looked up at Lily, his blue eyes surprisingly sharp. "She had secrets from me, Lily, especially near the end." Lily sat quietly, sensing this was important. "We argued," Nathan confessed, shame coloring his pale features. "The night before the accident. It was stupid. About her plans, her future. She was so determined to be independent, move out, find her own way. I was scared for her. Tried to control her, I suppose. Said things I regret." His voice broke. She stormed out. Took the car, even though it was raining hard. I told her not to drive angry. I shouldn't have let her go. Tears welled in his eyes, tracking paths down his sunken cheeks. I should have told her I loved her, that I was proud of her, even if I didn't understand. Lily reached out instinctively, placing her hand over his trembling one on the box. "Mr. Brooks," she said softly, her own eyes misting. She knew. Daughters know those things, even through arguments. And you can't blame yourself for the accident. You couldn't have known. Nathan looked at her, his expression filled with a profound, weary sadness. "Maybe," he whispered, "but the guilt, it never leaves." He seemed to drift for a moment. Then his eyes focused again, locking onto Lily's. "Emily, forgive me," he pleaded, his voice thick with delirium and genuine remorse, blurring the lines between Lily and his daughter once more. Caught in the raw emotion of the moment, Lily didn't correct him this time. She simply squeezed his hand gently. "There's nothing to forgive," she murmured, tears now flowing freely down her own cheeks. "Let it go. Be at peace." Nathan seemed to find some solace in her words. He leaned back against the pillows, his breathing evening out slightly. He kept his hand weakly covering hers on the box. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice clearer now, deliberate. "Lily," he said, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I started searching for long ago. After Emily." He gestured towards the box. "The key is on the chain around my neck. I want you to open it. After I'm gone." Lily looked at him, startled. "Mr. Brooks, you shouldn't talk like that." "It's all right, Lily," he said, a faint, serene smile touching his lips. "It's time. But there are things you need to know. Things Emily kept hidden. Things I only pieced together much, much later." He paused, gathering his strength. "I hire people, investigators, for years, looking for a ghost, a possibility." He looked directly into her eyes, his gaze filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "They found records, sealed adoption papers, a baby girl, born just days before Emily's accident, given up anonymously at a county hospital across town. No father listed, mother listed under a false name, but the description, the circumstances." Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced. Born adoption secrets. The trail went cold for years. Nathan continued, his voice growing weaker. "Sealed records are hard to break. But recently, new technology, DNA databases. My investigators found a possible link. A young woman working in healthcare. Here, in Los Angeles." His eyes held hers. "They gave me a name, Lily." "Your name?" Lily stared at him, speechless. Her heart hammered against her ribs. It couldn't be possible. Could it? The orphanage, the unanswered questions, the feeling of being untethered. "I didn't know for sure," Nathan rasped. "It seemed too improbable. A coincidence too cruel or too kind. But then you walked into my room, and I saw her eyes looking back at me. Emily's eyes." He squeezed her hand again, his grip surprisingly firm for a fleeting moment. "Not fake, Lily. Real." He gestured toward the box again. "The key. Open it. Please. Now." With trembling fingers, Lily gently lifted the thin gold chain from around Nathan's neck. A small, ornate silver key rested against his frail collarbone. Her hands shook as she fitted the key into the lock on the cherrywood box. It clicked open. Inside, nestled on faded velvet lining, wasn't just old concert tickets or drawings. There was a small stack of professionally bound documents, the investigator's final report. There were copies of brittle, yellowed hospital record from 25 years ago, detailing the birth of an unnamed baby girl. There was a copy of a sealed adoption file, legally obtained, listing the date and hospital of birth, matching Lily's own scant records, and tracing her path through the foster system. There was a DNA report showing a near-certain grandparental match between Nathan Brooks's submitted sample and genetic markers obtained discreetly, and perhaps not entirely legally, from a discarded coffee cup attributed to Lily Carter. And beneath it all, tucked into a protective sleeve, was a single, folded piece of paper. A letter written in a youthful, looping hand Lily recognized from the signature on drawings Nathan had shown her. It was from Emily, dated just 2 days before her accident. It wasn't addressed to Nathan, but perhaps intended for the child she was about to give up. "To my little star," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Everything is happening so fast. Your father, he doesn't know about you. He wasn't ready, and I was scared. My dad, I haven't told him either. He wouldn't understand. He tries so hard, but he wants to control everything. I just need to get you somewhere safe where you can have a chance. A better chance than I can give you right now. Know that I love you, more than words can say. Maybe someday, maybe somehow, we'll find each other again. Be brave, little star. Love, Mommy, Emily." Lily sank back in her chair, the letter trembling in her hand. Tears streamed down her face, blurring the words. It was true, all of it. The resemblance, the connection she'd felt, Nathan's desperate hope, wasn't fantasy. Emily Brooks, the vibrant girl in the photograph, the daughter Nathan mourned endlessly, was her mother. And Nathan Brooks, the lonely millionaire who had asked her to pretend, he was her grandfather. She looked up at Nathan, her vision swimming. He was watching her, his own eyes wet, a look of profound relief washing over his features. Grandfather? The word felt foreign, fragile on her tongue. Nathan nodded, a single tear tracing a path through the lines on his face. He reached out a trembling hand, and Lily grasped it tightly. The connection no longer imagined or requested, but stunningly, undeniably real. "My Lily," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "My Emily's Lily. Found." The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't the heavy silence of loneliness. It was the profound, echoing silence of revelation, of decades of secrets finally brought into the light, of a family lost and, in the final moments, miraculously found. Lily knelt by his bedside, clinging to his hand, her world irrevocably changed. She wasn't pretending anymore. The hours that followed the revelation were a blur of intense emotion for Lily. She stayed by Nathan's bedside, holding his hand, the open cherrywood box and its life-altering contents resting on the nearby table. They didn't speak much. Words seemed inadequate. Instead, they shared a profound, quiet understanding. Lily absorbed the fragmented pieces of her history Nathan offered between periods of rest. Emily's fierce spirit, her artistic soul, her secret struggles. Nathan, in turn, seemed to draw strength from Lily's presence, his gaze often resting on her face with a mixture of wonder and peace. He told her about Emily's love for painting, her terrible singing voice but infectious laugh, her dream of traveling the world. He spoke of his own regrets, his fear of letting her go, his failure to see the young woman she was becoming beneath the daughter he tried to protect. Lily listened, piecing together an image of the mother she never knew, and understanding the grandfather who had mourned her for so long. As dawn approached, Nathan's breathing grew shallower. The monitors beeped with increasing urgency, but he waved away the attending physician Lily had quietly summoned. His eyes found Lily's. "Stay," he rasped, his grip surprisingly tight on her hand. "I'm right here, grandfather," Lily whispered, leaning closer. "I'm not going anywhere." A serene smile touched Nathan's lips. The lines of pain and grief that had seemed etched onto his face softened. "Emily would be so proud of you, Lily," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "So strong, so kind." His eyes fluttered closed. "My Lily, my little star." His hand went slack in hers. The frantic beeping of the monitor flatlined, replaced by a single, continuous tone that echoed the sudden stillness in the room. Nathan Brooks, tech millionaire, grieving father, newly found grandfather, was gone. He had died not in the cold isolation of his wealth, but holding the hand of the granddaughter he had spent decades searching for, his final moments filled not with despair, but with peace and connection. Lily sat there for a long time, the silence now truly peaceful, filled with the weight of Nathan's passing and the staggering reality of her own identity. Grief washed over her, grief for the grandfather she had only just found, grief for the mother she would never meet, grief for the lost years. But mingled with the sorrow was a strange sense of belonging, a quiet joy at finally knowing where she came from. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Nathan's lawyer, a kind, elderly man named Arthur Penhaligon, met with Lily. He had been Nathan's confidant for years and was aware of the long search for Emily's child. He handled everything with quiet efficiency and profound sympathy. The DNA results, combined with the adoption records and Emily's letter, left no doubt. Lily Carter was legally recognized as Lily Brooks Carter, Nathan Brooks's sole heir. The sheer scale of the inheritance was incomprehensible. Billions, properties around the world, stocks, bonds, art collections, the controlling interest in Brooks' innovations. Lily, who had budgeted meticulously for groceries and worried about student loan payments, was suddenly one of the wealthiest women in the country. It felt surreal, overwhelming. Arthur gently guided her through the initial legal necessities, shielding her from the inevitable media frenzy that erupted when the story broke. "Nathan wanted you to have time," Arthur explained. "Time to process, to decide." He left specific instructions. No pressure, no expectations. His only wish, expressed near the end, was that you find happiness. Lily retreated from the world for a while, staying in a quiet guest house on one of Nathan's more secluded properties. She pored over the contents of the cherrywood box, read Emily's letter countless times, looked at photos of her mother, her grandparents. She visited the small, unassuming cemetery where Emily was buried, placing a bouquet of wildflowers, Emily's favorite, according to Nathan, on the simple headstone. She thought about her life, her years in foster care, the instability, the loneliness, but also the moments of kindness from overworked social workers, dedicated foster parents, and fellow orphans who became makeshift siblings. She thought about her work as a nurse, the fulfillment she found in caring for others, the quiet dignity she witnessed in patients facing hardship. And she thought about Nathan, his profound loneliness despite his vast fortune, his final peace found only through human connection. The money felt like a heavy weight, an immense responsibility. Keeping it all for herself felt wrong, hollow. It wouldn't honor Nathan's journey or Emily's memory. It wouldn't reflect the values Lily herself held dear. She remembered Nathan's words. Emily would be so proud. What would make her mother, and the grandfather she barely knew, truly proud? The answer came to her gradually, coalescing from her own experiences and the echoes of Nathan's final days. Care, connection, healing. Working closely with Arthur Penhaligon and a team of trusted financial advisors Nathan had designated, Lily began to formulate a plan. She divested herself from the day-to-day operations of Brooks Innovations, placing her controlling shares in a trust managed by professionals, ensuring its continued stability but freeing herself to pursue a different path. Her vision was ambitious. A state-of-the-art pediatric medical center combined with a supportive residential wing, located not in an affluent suburb, but in an underserved community in Los Angeles. It would offer top-tier medical care free of charge to children from low-income families, foster children, and orphans, kids like she used to be. It would provide not just medical treatment, but also emotional support, educational resources, and a sense of community. She decided to name it the Emily Brooks Nathan Carter Center for Healing, honoring her mother's spirit, her grandfather's rediscovered love, and the name she herself had carried for so long. She chose Carter for Nathan's part of the name, feeling it represented the connection he made with Lily Carter, the nurse, before knowing her identity. The project took several years to bring to fruition, navigating permits, construction, staffing, and establishing the foundation to manage the endowment, ensuring its perpetuity. Lily was involved in every step, not as a distant benefactor, but as a hands-on leader. She completed further studies in healthcare administration, but never fully gave up her nursing roots. Today, the Emily Brooks Nathan Carter Center stands as a beacon of hope. Its bright, welcoming halls buzz with activity. Children receive cutting-edge care from compassionate staff. The residential wing provides a safe haven for kids undergoing long treatments or those transitioning out of foster care into independent living. Lily Brooks Carter, now in her early 30s, is a respected philanthropist and healthcare advocate, but she hasn't disappeared into boardrooms and fundraising galas. Several days a week, she still puts on scrubs, albeit custom-made ones now. She walks the wards, not as the billionaire founder, but as Nurse Lily. She sits with frightened children awaiting surgery, reads stories to toddlers in the playroom, and holds the hands of anxious parents. Sometimes, late at night, when the halls are quiet, she sits by the bedside of a particularly lonely or frightened child, just as she sat with Nathan. She holds their hand, offers quiet words of comfort, and sometimes just listens. "I'm right here with you," she whispers, the words echoing her promise to her grandfather. The immense fortune Nathan Brooks left behind wasn't just inherited, it was transformed. Lily, the orphan nurse who was asked to pretend for a day, had turned that fragile moment of connection into a lasting legacy. She had found her family, her identity, and her purpose, weaving together the threads of her past and Nathan's grief into a tapestry of healing that continued to touch countless lives. The love, born in the shadow of death and revealed through an improbable inheritance, had become real, tangible, and enduring.